Arabic language mass media, radio, television and newspapers are undergoing a profound change. Some have even called it a revolution. In the last 10 years, commercial satellite TV channels have multiplied. They cross national, cultural and religious boundaries and get around traditional state controls, opening some communities to uncensored news reporting for the first time.
Not mainstream media, I'm a believer, that's the sector I come from.
A recent conference at London's School of Oriental and African Studies brought together academics and journalists to discuss the impacts of these changes, among them Lawrence Pintak of the American University in Cairo.
There's two main things happening in the Arab media. One is that you're shifting from a government-controlled media to, on a pan-Arab level, media controlled by what I call oligarchs, corporate feudalism, where people who are either of royal families or cronies of leaders are setting up pan-Arab satellite channels or setting up media conglomerates. So we've shifted from a government-controlled situation to a situation where those who reflect government views control the message. At the same time, you have the internet, which means that anyone who has a computer can set up a blog and report news. So there's two very different phenomena, and those are resonating off each other and having an effect across the region in terms of the political narrative and the dialogue going on.
Access by citizens to views and opinions other than those sanctioned by the state is a real challenge for some Middle Eastern governments. Added to that, there are now 44 private TV channels across the region, compared with 46 run by the state.
The media revolution started a decade ago with Al Jazeera, which changed the whole way people consumed information, what they heard, when they heard it. But then the internet revolution means that individuals can also be affecting that agenda. And we saw it with what we call Facebook Girl, a young woman in Egypt who set up a Facebook group that ultimately called for the April general strike.
A 27-year-old Egyptian woman called the Facebook Girl by the world's press was accused of using the internet site to call for Egyptians to go on strike. Facebook Girl was reportedly arrested and questioned by police. The case received wide coverage on the satellite news channels.
Now, what happened recently in the last few years is that you have the Arab satellite channels, and mainly the 24 hours news channels, which actually sort of revolutionized, if you can say that, the scene in the media in the Arab world. So the state-run TV stations inside the Arab countries are not anymore able to censor information from their audiences, because their audiences can get these informations from the Arab satellite channels and vice versa. And on the 24 hours news channel, we used to have only Al Jazeera, which used to represent, if some people say, one point of view. Now you have two news 24 channels, which basically represent two different political points of view in the Arab world. So it's more diverse than what we used to hear and what we used to see in the Arab world.
The Arab satellite TV revolution began some 11 years ago with the almost simultaneous launch of Al Jazeera from Qatar and the Arab News Network broadcasting from London. Financed by private investors based in Syria, ANN has experienced some turbulent times since it began, shrinking from its initial worldwide base to a more modest level of output. But it's now poised to rejoin the major league under its original executive editor, Dr. Qasim Al-Masrani.
We were on air. The first day was on 19th of May 1997, nearly 11 years ago. And we really wanted to be CNN, Arabic CNN. And that's why we chose the name of Arabic News Network. And we were very successful to the point that many newspapers, Western media, mass media, talked about ANN, about the audience of the viewers and the popularity of ANN. And at the time, Al Jazeera were only 6 months ahead of us, and no Al Arabiya, for example, only about private MBC were on air, and about 3 channels, news channels, and the rest were sponsored or state-controlled TV stations.
Protected by UK law from state interference from abroad, ANN built a reputation for an independent view of Middle Eastern affairs, helping to reshape government attitudes in the region towards the new force for change that satellite channels represented.
They recognize the need for change themselves, and they are trying to do, but still, when it comes to state news, to government news, they always take, of course, the view or the side of the government, and everything must be also vetted by security services there. And on the other hand, we are not, especially we are British, not only based, but a British corporation. I mean, we are abiding here like ANN by the British law.
But government-sponsored censorship is not the only source of editorial control affecting news coverage in the Middle East. Former journalist Dr. Zahara Harb admits her own work was often shaped by so-called self-censorship.
Every journalist works within a cultural, social, religious, political environment. And in a way or another, this journalist cannot actually operate without having these kind of contexts affecting their performances. So that's what was happening, basically. I was operating within the cultural, social, political, and religious environment context that I was operating in. That's why maybe some of my colleagues actually said that journalists knew the taboos and knew what kind of things that, you know, we shouldn't be dealing with, and that's related to what we call cultural sensitivity within the society that we actually work in.
Satellite TV, internet news and citizen journalism are all part of the new media mix, and news gatherers like ANN must keep up with the times to survive.
ANN and the rest of the private TV stations trying really to be at the vanguard of the say information revolution or mass media revolution, and they have created a lot of a change in the Arab world as far as public opinion is concerned, as political agenda is concerned, and how the Arab audience view the story, this story from that story.
Commentators are quick to point out that 10 years of satellite TV news in the Arab world has not yet made a significant impact in any of the countries where state censorship is practiced. But they all agree that now the genie is out of the bottle, the process of freeing the media is probably irreversible.
It is already broken. You know, we cannot talk about total censorship. You know, I said at the beginning that you cannot actually generalize the situation in the Arab world. There are different countries, different ways of dealing with issues in different countries. And it is, you know, if I want to be fair, I would say that we have less censorship on the government aspect and on the journalist self level. It's definitely less censorship, and I think at certain stages we don't have censorship at all because of the competing forces within the media market in the Arab world now.
There are no national media systems anymore. All media is intertwined. The most widely viewed channel and the most trusted channel in Egypt is Al Jazeera, which is based in Qatar. If you're sitting in Lebanon, you can watch Al Arabiya. You can watch any channel in the region in your home. You can log onto your internet, onto your computer, and look at internet sites from across the region and, of course, around the world. So all of these conversations, all of these political agendas are all merging, and they're all resonating off each other. There's a ripple effect where a blogger reports something and it ends up on Al Jazeera. A 25-year-old girl sets up a Facebook group and it's headlines around the world. So all of this is interlinked, and governments can't put their finger in the information dike anymore. It just doesn't work.
ANN is planning to climb back to their original position among the leading Arabic language satellite news channels alongside Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya. They just relaunched their 24-hour rolling news service and are planning a new London studio. On the internet, they'll be opening an on-demand web news service in the near future.
And by